Hi, my name is Adegoke, and I'm an under 40 CEO.
The African Renaissance. The concept that the African people and nation shall overcome the current challenges confronting the continent and achieve cultural, scientific, and economic renewal is here, with young men and women taking the lead. Some call them the new school heroes. We call them under 40 CEOs.
A graduate of the University of Ibadan, where she obtained both her bachelor's and master's degrees, Adegoke has over 15 years post-qualification experience in development. She leads effectively at all levels of development cooperation, and her work experience, CSR strategy formulation, sustainability reporting, management, coordination, and fundraising for poverty reduction focused development programs within Africa and internationally. Ade is the head of Oando Foundation. All right, welcome to Under 40 CEOs, Ade.
Thank you for having me, Fab.
Now, Ade, you bagged your first degree in geography from the University of Ibadan and then went back to the same school for your master's degree in geographic information systems, I believe. Now, tell me a little bit about growing up and then what informed those academic choices.
I grew up in Lagos, and as a child, I loved animals. I was a child in class that would get gifted guinea pigs. So I got 2 guinea pigs from someone in my class. I got cats adopted as we went along. I got fish. I got all sorts of animals as we went along, and I just loved animals. Career choice-wise, I knew I wanted to do something related to animals. I just didn't know what it was. I also knew I had a father who used to travel the world for work. So I knew I wanted to travel the world. If I had thought about it, and with hindsight, I would say that I probably would have done maybe like wildlife management and all, but then I thought of geography as a first course to study, which was linked to my traveling the world, not exactly knowing what I wanted to do traveling the world. But then, so that's why I chose geography. I think helping people came much later during my stay at university, because I started volunteering with a foundation called Nigerian Conservation Foundation while I was at the university, and started giving back while I was there to the Conservation Foundation through taking children on walks and talks during my volunteering with them. And later on, I chose Geographic Information Systems because of my work with the foundation, and I found out how important it was to do, to get information and use that information to help people.
Okay, beautiful. Now let's go back to traveling the world. You have about 15 years experience in development across a number of countries, including, and I would list them, Nigeria, of course, Ghana, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Kenya. Should I go on? South Africa, Congo, Togo, Canada, US, the United Kingdom, and of course, Bangladesh. Now, that's some experience. Would you mind touching on some major highlights from these countries?
Well, at this point, I'll say why I traveled the world. First of all, I traveled the world because I was working with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation first. To start off, I tell people that most times what people think of when they think of their first job is, oh, I need money, especially in Nigeria. For me, my first job came about from my love of one, travel, yes, but then also because I wasn't thinking of money. And I'll give key statistics, for instance. Most of my peers, once we left university, started working in banks. Then loads of people would recruit people, and it was banking. Everybody wanted to be a banker. And at that time, I knew I wanted to serve people. I didn't know exactly how. I applied at the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. I got posted there for my NYC. And my salary was 1/10 of what my mates in the banks were earning at the time.
Wow.
But then what happened was, even though I was earning 1/10 of the money, I basically had a free ticket to travel almost everywhere in Nigeria. So for instance, I worked in and around 9 national parks. I worked around tiny communities along the border of Nigeria, helping them think through what alternative livelihoods they had. And working with NCF then, I was opportunity to go to places like Ghana to work with the Wildlife Conservation Society there. I was able to move on to Water Aid, a charity dedicated to water supply and sanitation, for poor people and vulnerable people across the world. So I was opportunity to work in Mali and Ghana, Burkina Faso. Once again, for me, it was tiny communities in those places, seeing how we could ensure that they got access to potable water supply and sanitation. Also leading on programs such as community-led total sanitation, which Bangladesh is the hub for progress, and also developing all the methodology around community-led total sanitation. So typically, that's why I traveled.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
The key highlight for me, working with WaterAid across Mali, Burkina, and Ghana, and Nigeria, is the fact that thousands of people got access to clean water, and we were actually able to see the levels of disease rates and then also health rates improve. I think that was a key thing for me. Another thing that was key for me was based on the fact that I got to train quite a lot of people across the various countries on the methodology to use to actually document data and how to prove we actually were making progress, and advocate to local governments to set up plans for local water supply and sanitation development. I was awarded a prize.
Nice.
For being able to transfer learning across West Africa. And I think for me, that was a major thing, a major achievement, working across those countries.
You're making a big difference in all of these tiny communities, but how has travel and interacting with diverse cultures, added value to you and to your firm?
It's made me see different cultures and different people's perspectives. It's made me learn from them and made me transfer the learning to the work I do. So for instance, a water supply system in a small town in Malawi or in Burkina is totally different from one in a local government called Oju in Benue State in Nigeria, for instance. But what we've been able to do is transfer their learning with regards to ensuring that the system is sustainable and ensuring that community-based organizations can actually advocate for improvements in their life in communities. And I've also been able to transfer that from one sector to the other. So for instance, it's the same type of advocacy and same type of communication you require in the water sector, you can transfer it to the education sector, which I'm doing currently, working with the Oando Foundation, working with stakeholders in the foundation and across Nigerian states to ensure that there's increased access to education in the government-owned primary schools that we work.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
Okay, beautiful. Talking about working for Oando Foundation, you did work for Oando Foundation at some point and then left for DFID and then returned to Oando Foundation after 2 years. What were you doing in those 2 years at DFID?
I worked for the Nigerian Stability and Reconciliation Program. It's a DFID funded program, and it works on conflict resolution and peace building across certain states in Nigeria. So for instance, in the northeast of Nigeria, Borno and Yobe, with regards to the Boko Haram crisis there. In the Middle Belt, Kaduna and Plateau states, the pastoralists and the herdsmen and conflict around there. And then in the Niger Delta, around resource mobilization, oil spills, and that's typically it. But what we did at that time, what I did with a team of people at that time is results measurements, monitoring and evaluation across the program to highlight how things could actually be done better and moved along, and different stakeholder groups could actually plan their lives a bit better and use the resources they had without actually fighting.
All right, so today you're the head of Oando Foundation. So while studying geography for your first degree, did you ever think that corporate social responsibility would be a career path that you would be, towing many years down the line?
I think at the time I wouldn't have called it corporate social responsibility. I knew I wanted to give back. I didn't coin it CSR.
Okay.
And I'll say this because I did, like I mentioned before, I actually volunteered while I was at school with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. However, even while I was studying geography, I was part of the Geography Association. And for the 50th anniversary of the University of Ibadan, what we did was we went round, we wrote proposals. With hindsight, when I think of those proposals, I shake my head. However, we did write proposals as students and went out to market trying to get some money to fund our trip to climb the highest point in Nigeria at the time, the Chapal Wadi in Taraba State. It's called the Mountain of Death. And to go to different schools, secondary schools along the way, to talk about geography and its importance and how life wouldn't be the same without geography. So I knew at that time I would give back. I didn't know how. Further down the line, of course, I have been able to give back in various ways, personally and working with the foundation. The foundation was set up in 2011, and it's dedicated to education in Nigeria, basic education. And the reason for us doing this is we see a need. There are quite a number of children in this country that wouldn't have a leg in if they don't have education. We have a population growth rate at 3.5% on an annual basis. It's extremely high. What happens to all those children who are born, who don't have an education, who wouldn't be able to do anything with their lives if we don't intervene? And that's why the foundation was set up.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
What is your job, what's your job description basically, and what's your daily routine like?
Apart from being passionate about what I do and ensuring that the end beneficiaries get served, it's to set the tone, strategy for the organization, and to ensure that we can think years ahead. We can ensure that we get all the stakeholders we need to get in through the door. I see each of our schools as a crucible for partnership. So the foundation can only go so far with regards to our interventions with the Adopt a School program. However, our key function, apart from intervening in those schools and ensuring that the learning outcomes of the children improve, is to ensure that we get stakeholders through the door to support these schools. So towing the line for strategy, setting the tone for governance, and ensuring that all the people who work with me actually take on that responsibility of ensuring that the end beneficiary is key. You asked a question around what I do every day. I think what I do every day routinely, first thing is to ensure that my work in the office is not about punching papers or typing up numbers or anything like that. What I do is to ensure that I interact with my team and find out where exactly we're going. Are we meeting our milestones? Are we getting feedback from the communities and partners? We work with local NGOs in the various states where we work. Do we know what they're doing on a daily basis? Do we need to provide them any support? Is there anything, I wouldn't say anything challenging happening down there or going wrong, but if there is, what are we doing to solve it? So that's basically what my daily routine is.
All right, so talking about your team, what's your current organizational structure like at Oando Foundation?
I have a team of 7 people. We have a board of trustees. We actually have board of trustees in Nigeria, the UK, and the US. The Nigerian board is basically to run the governance of the organization and for setting the tone strategy-wise. The UK and US boards are to create awareness about the situation of education in Nigeria and to raise funds. Well, I won't say I'll say resources, not funds. So resources in cash or in kind for solving the issues with regard to education in our schools in Nigeria.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
Ade is well versed in facilitating community meetings, supporting and guiding national and expatriate specialists, advising government officials and/or representatives of international development agencies and foundations. Ade has strong skills in project financial management, and we're hoping that she can share key lessons garnered in running a not-for-profit venture. All right, so what are the most critical lessons that you've learned and can share about running a not-for-profit organization?
It has to be participatory. You've also got to be able to get the buying of a community where you work. You can't run a not-for-profit, and you can't. You have to put the cause first. Yes, people, but you have to put the cause first. So you have to ensure that people buy in to the vision and buy into the cause. So there's no point saying that they're beneficiaries in need, or there's no point saying that there are people in need in the community if the communities themselves don't think they're in need. You've got to start bottom up. You've got to have a sit down with the community. You've got to be able to say, I realize, because in Nigeria, education is not the first thing the communities would put as their key issue.
What would be the first thing?
Food, shelter,
Okay. All right.
money. They would put all those other issues first before education. What we try to help them see is, if you do not prioritize education, if you don't think of your children's education, your community is not going to move forward. So for every non-profit, I would say, and for my non-profits, for the Oando Foundation, what we do is we put the cause first. We try to ensure that the community understands what the issue is, buys into the solution, is a part of putting together putting together for the structure to solving the problem, and then ensuring it's sustainable. So for instance, if we're going to school today, it's not about giving out a handout to this school. It's about calling the stakeholders together and say, well, this is your school. We're coming in to support you. We would try to ensure other people know about the plight of your school so they can support you as well. But you've got to put a plan together. And our program, like I mentioned before, is the Adopt a School program. It's 7-pronged. It deals with creating conducive environment, ensuring that there's water supply and sanitation. Either we rehabilitate or reconstruct, or even do a new build to ensure that the kids have a conducive environment. We also ensure the teachers are trained. So we have teachers that need to be trained in various things. So for instance, some teachers have never even seen a computer in some of our schools. How do you train children? How do you ensure the children that the pupils in the school can compete globally with their peers if the teacher doesn't know what a computer looks like, doesn't know how to switch on a computer? We sometimes have to start at that basic level. Early childcare, we have to ensure that quite a number of our mothers, for instance, are out in markets. They are out in farms. They take their children to the farm because there's really nowhere to leave them. But Nigeria has a policy for early childcare. Is it being implemented in quite a number of our schools? No. Even where it is implemented, in some of the schools, you see just a mat on the floor. The children between the ages of 0 to 3 learn with their senses. If the teacher doesn't know what to teach or how to care for these children or how to engage them in such a way that they're learning, they would go through school but basically be illiterate. So one of the things we do with our teacher training program is to ensure that we have early childcare training for teachers. And the last thing is the head teacher training. Sometimes you go to a school and ask the head teacher, how do you manage your school? For her, because she's not thought of the school as something she needs to manage as a whole, it's just, oh, let me check on a classroom teacher, or let me just see the children. I've heard this before. As long as I see the children as my children, then it's fine. But you need to have staff meetings. You need to put some structure or plan in place to ensure that your school can actually be measured against other schools. So those are kind of things we do training our teachers. We have another intervention area strictly for early childcare, which has nothing to do with teacher training. So we actually convert the most times blank class to a proper early childcare.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
I can tell that at Oando Foundation you've done so much work. Now, how old is the Oando Foundation, firstly, and secondly, how much ground have you managed to cover?
The foundation was established in 2011.
Okay.
This is 2016. We have a target of adopting 100 schools. At the moment, we've adopted 80.
Wow.
Student population that we've actually intervened with, performance-wise, is about 50,000 children at the moment. We have a further target to ensure that 60,000 out-of-school children are brought back into school over a 3-year period. So by 2018, our target is to ensure 60,000 out-of-school children are brought back into school. This year alone, we've actually helped about 16,000 out-of-school children back into school. And the reason out-of-school children is very important to us is because Nigeria has the largest number globally. At the moment, we have 10.5 million children, and that's the largest number.
All right, Ade, please tell me about that one project that you executed at Oando Foundation that left you saying, yes, we've made a huge difference in this community.
The foundation has scholarships for children to transition them from primary school to secondary school, and they're scholarships for the best 3, in some cases 10 children, to transition them from primary to secondary school. And 2 stories actually stand out for me. One story is from the northern part of Nigeria. I don't want to mention names and states. A girl who was meant to be married off at a pretty young age got a scholarship to go to secondary school, one of the best secondary schools, public secondary schools in her state, and she really wanted to go even though her parents wanted her to get married. When she was meant to resume, the head teacher of the primary school went to the secondary school and the girl didn't turn up. At the very last minute, she waited for her, and at the very last minute, she saw the girl come on a motorcycle to the secondary school. She said, well, I can't enroll you until I find out if your parents really want you to go ahead with this. She took her back to the village head, and the village head sent for her parents, and basically she got enrolled in school. The village head declared that no child or no girl child who wanted to go to school should be stopped from going to school. And all girl children, he proclaimed that all girl children from that community going forward had to attend school. So for me, that's a key success. She's doing very well in school. She's in SS1 right now, and she's one of the top students in her school. Second story, which I'll tell you about quickly, is one of a young man now. He's also in SS1, who used to live on the Karamu waterfront. And if you recall, the Karamu waterfront experienced a huge flood, and all the houses there were destroyed. Some people lost their lives, but he's still in school. He's still on our scholarship, and hopefully he'll finish in a few years. So that's two stories that really stand out from
Amazing, amazing. And for all of this work that you're doing, I'm sure you're receiving loads of awards, accolades, recognition. What do these awards, accolades, recognitions, what do they mean to you?
For what we do, it's just a thank you. So for us, I'll say us because I wouldn't take on the accolade as, personal accolade. I'll take it on as awards to my team for all the efforts and the late nights they've put in to ensuring things happen. So it's heartwarming to know people are actually appreciative of the work we do.
Okay, so while on this journey, what are those key challenges that you've had to overcome to make the strides that you've made so far?
It's a process. So when you're working with multiple stakeholders, process-wise, you have to ensure that you get the proper approvals from the various entities. Because you're working in schools, you have to ensure that the children you're working with are well protected and are safe. So you don't allow, everybody knows what happens in society now with regards to kidnapping and adults taking advantage of vulnerable children. So we have to be extremely careful to put things in place to ensure children are well protected and cared for.
Okay, beautiful. Now, how would you describe your leadership style?
I lead by example. I also lead through consultation. I want people to know that they have someone they can trust to take them on a journey and stand with them when things go wrong.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
Ade extensively utilizes participatory methodology and logical framework approach in project design, implementation, and reporting capacity building, and is currently adding value to thousands of lives through the foundation that she runs. But what does Ade consider valuable, and how does she spend her valuable time and resources outside of work? I seek to find out these and more. All right, I have a few quick fire questions for you. What do you love to eat?
Spicy rice.
How would you describe your style?
Comfortable and classy.
Lovely. What other CEOs do you currently look up to?
Quite a number of women CEOs who started their businesses from scratch.
What are your favorite brands to wear?
I don't have any.
Your favorite car to drive?
None. Totally clueless about cars.
Wow. Your favorite travel destination then?
My hometown, Abeokuta, and my husband's hometown, Accra.
Your favorite book of all time?
Who Moved My Cheese? I tell most young people to read it.
All right. And what book are you reading right now?
David and Goliath. It's
Okay.
about misfits and moving things along by Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay, beautiful. Now, lastly, I'd like to know, what makes Adegoke happy?
Family and swimming.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming on Under 40 CEOs, Ade.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Right.
Hi, my name is Adegoke, and you can be an Under 40 CEO too.
Visit www.bellaniger.com for exclusive clips and updates on Under 40 CEOs.
This is Under 40 CEOs.